Hi, welcome to One Eye on the Page. I am Scott. It is the weekly reading wrap up for the 29th of April through the 5th of May. Let's go ahead and get started. I read a lot of books again this week. Repeat, repeat, repeat. Although, a little bit of variety to my reading. It was not all sapphic romance. So let's go ahead and get started because this is probably going to be long. First is a romance, not a sapphic romance. It is Funny Story by Emily Henry. I have read several books by Emily Henry when I first did a video for reading romances because at that time I had not read many romances. That's changed. And she was one of the authors that I enjoyed when I was first starting to read it. Uh, Her last novel, Happy Place, did not like at all. This book I think has brought her back up again. Uh, Daphne is basically dumped by her fiance Peter, who decides on the night of his bachelor party that he is in love with his female best friend Petra. Petra also dumps her longtime boyfriend Miles. The happy couple does this by basically leaving notes for these two people, or at least in Peter's case, trying to leave a note. He just didn't expect Daphne to be there. So after being dumped, Daphne and Miles end up living together because Daphne was living in Peter's house, and he's basically like, "You dumped, and you got like a week to get out." Well, I'm going on a vacation with my best friend, who I'm also banging now. So she moves in with Miles. Miles is kind of a straggly guy, tattooed, doesn't really seem to, at least at the beginning of the book, have it together. Uh, Daphne works at a library, seems to be pretty straight laced. They both have family issues, uh, and they are both invited to the suddenly, quickly uh, wedding of Peter and Petra, which I'm like, dude, why would you invite the people you just dumped? But they do get invited, and Daphne, in a moment of weakness, just straight up lies and says, yeah, that she's going and she's going with her boyfriend. And when Peter points out you didn't put a plus one, it's like, because he has already has an invitation. It's Miles, so they do the whole fake dating thing, uh, which that's not as big a part of the novel as you expect when you read the kind of synopsis of it. It's basically about how their feelings for each other start to get going, and this is told from Daphne's point of view. So we don't always get from Miles except as what he's saying to Daphne. Uh, I like Daphne and Miles. I was frustrated by both characters at some points, but in a realistic way. I really enjoyed this. If you've watched me for a little while, you know that generally I don't necessarily enjoy the heterosexual man woman romances because of the way that the male characters are written. Nothing wrong with Miles except for Miles being a dumbass in a very understandable way. This was a fun read. It may be my favorite Emily Henry book, maybe a bit of recency bias, but I think it might be. So 4.5 stars for that. Never Say Never by Rachael Sommers. Uh, Camilla is getting a divorce from her husband. She has her child, so she needs a nanny. She hires Emily Walker, who's fresh out of college but about to go to like an astrophysics program, and older woman nanny. Of course, they start to develop feelings for each other. Uh, I think this was particularly well written. I enjoyed it. The storyline obviously wasn't anything new, and I don't think it went anywhere new with it. I did enjoy Emily and Camilla. I enjoyed the kid. I can't remember the kid's name. I don't. Yeah, I didn't write it down. I will say I listened to this on audiobook. Didn't have much of a problem with it, but Emily's sister's voice, the voice that the narrator used for it, was awful. As somebody who was born in Massachusetts, I didn't enjoy the way the accent was used, but that didn't take away from the enjoyment of the book. So it's 4 stars. The Rules of Forever by Nan Campbell. Cara Tallarico is a public school teacher who is paying off her student debts. So she has decided that she's going to sacrifice pretty much everything to pay off her debts by the age of 35. So no no social life. But she goes to a her 10-year school reunion, and there is Lauren, who she had a crush on in school. Uh, Lauren doesn't really remember Kara because Kara's a very quiet student, but they do develop a little bit of a repartee that night, and then Lauren takes Kara back home because her ride wasn't able to, and they talk, and then they basically decide to do a friends with benefit kind of thing so that they can have sex without having to worry about, relationships. And of course, that works out perfectly at the end. That no, they develop feelings for each other, and I like both the characters in here. Uh, I do think kind of dragged a little bit in the middle, kind of like after they're together and before the author decides, okay, I'm going to throw this in to kind of muck up the works a little bit, but still generally pretty good. 4 stars. Like they do in the movies by Nan Campbell. Fran is a screenwriter who writes sapphic romantic comedies, and of course, nobody wants to touch those, so she ends up working for a celebrity gossip page and then decides that she needs to take down a celebrity for some reason. And the best way to do it is to perhaps get hired as a personal assistant to Chelsea Cartwright, famous actress, uh, to dig up some dirt on her. And of course, starts to develop feelings for her, and then the conflict of should I tell her who I actually am? If I tell her who I actually am, I will be fired, and then I won't be near her anymore. This had so many ways that it could be bad, and some of those ways it did, but somehow never fully fell on its face. Uh, I think, considering the storyline that there was, that I'm giving this a 4 star is quite an accomplishment because it shouldn't have been as good as it was. That Certain Something by Claire Ashton. I've read lots of books by Claire Ashton. This one, I think it was published in 2014, possibly one of her first books, maybe her first book. Pia is a photojournalist, uh, very idealistic. She's taking pictures of a basically a crooked government member, and she runs into Kate, and they have quite a night together. End up making love, and then they part, and then later she gets hired to work for a media corporation, and she sees Kate there, who is a journalist. And also, Kate is married to this guy, can't remember his name. Uh, the day after that, she and Pia got together. Uh, this was a first novel. Doesn't have a lot of Ashton's very good qualities in there. Has a lot of editing mistakes, I would say. Very bad with the missing commas. Uh, Pia, perhaps a little too idealistic that I didn't necessarily buy. I just think possibly a first novel and Ashton hadn't honed her talents like she would later. Still not a bad novel. 3.5 stars. It's all about Bex by Melissa Tereze. Ellis is like a butch woman whose best friend's sister Bex comes into town, and she basically develops feelings for Bex. Bex is very flirty. She gets warned not to go near Bex because Bex is not good. This one I think started out well, started out really interesting, and I like the characters. And honestly, I think particularly with the character of Ellis, the characters change drastically over the novel. The character of Ellis at the end is nowhere near what the character of Ellis is at the beginning. Uh, Honestly, way too over the top for me. This started out well, which is why I'm giving it a 3 star, but it does not end up well. If I were to read it, I would probably read like the first third of it and then stop. Way too soap opera for me, also. Unlikely by Marley Valentine. Uh, Clementine meets Zara at a bar one night and they have a one night stand. And then they part. And then they meet like months later and realize that Clem, who's a very anxiety ridden woman who, although she is gay, had never been with a woman before that night with Zara, meets Zara. Zara is the mother of a coworker. Zara has her own issues. She had a miscarriage for the baby that she was carrying for the father of her child and his partner. So she feels like she can't mourn for that child because it wasn't hers. Uh, and uh, and and Clem is a foster child who has foster brothers. They're very close knit, and she's got a lot going on too. And I think I think Clem is 24 in this novel, and Zara is 32. She had her child. I think it's Paige is the name of the kid. When she was 16, so maybe 34. There's a 10 years difference. Yeah, she was 34, so 24 and 34. There's an age gap, but not a drastic one. I like the relationship between the two. I give this one 4.5 stars. Reservations of the Heart by T.B. Markinson. Markinson's always hit or miss for me. Stella's a 41-year-old doctor. She's divorced. She doesn't really have a personal life. She she meets Aurora Shirley. She's 29. She works at like a reservation office in this uh, basically teaching hospital, and the two of them meet slowly, slowly, slowly develop a relationship. Except It's that whole we're just gonna do it casual. Oh no, I'm getting feelings. Um, Stella doesn't seem like a 41-year old. Doesn't seem. I mean, uh, Aurora seems older, quite honestly, and I don't really think much of Aurora. I did these two characters. I just doesn't really work for me. It's a 3 star, but I have to be honest. I read this bit by bit, like over probably 6 weeks. I don't know if I tried to read it all in one sitting. If I would give it a 3 star, I may take it down a little bit, but for what I had, 3 star. Under the Stars with You by Jaime Clevenger also wrote House Swap 101 that I talked about last week, which I enjoyed that. Ty Sutherland, non binary, was on a online sex chat group and basically had kind of an online relationship with Leslie Brandt, which eventually moved to uh, text, but text and phone call. But what happened there is Leslie's name was in there, and as soon as she found out that Ty knew who she was, though she does not know who Ty is, she basically calls it up. Well, they meet months later. Ty is a veterinarian who, or is a vet student, not a veterinarian yet. Also works with horses. Leslie is there to basically babysit for the kid of friends who had to go out of state. Of course, Leslie's a real estate person, so they had met before when Ty's friend brought them to an open house for cookies. And Ty recognizes Leslie's name. And eventually, Ty admits who they are. And then they wrestle about, can we get together? If we get together, what is it? Uh, there's a lot of horses. There's a lot about horses. I don't like horses. Nothing against horses. We had a bad experience together. I came out on the worst end, so it's not your fault, horses, except maybe that one horse. But I don't like you. So when there's a lot of talk about horses, a lot of talk about horses, it's just not going to get a great rating for me. 3 stars. So let's go to dogs instead. Rescued Hearts, Rescued Hearts by Georgia Beers. It's This is like the first book of the June Bug Farm series. June Bug Farms is basically an animal shelter, a no-kill shelter. Uh, Lisa is in charge of intake and adoption there. She's kind of a little bit of an ice queen. There's also a volunteer, Ashley Stiles, who's there. They slowly start to form a relationship together. There are 3 books in this series. I did read all of them. I forget how I ranked them all, but even I think at least 2 of them share this ranking. I did enjoy this. I enjoyed this one a little bit more, mainly because of Ashley. I really like Ashley in this novel. Uh, Very indecisive character who finally basically steps up and does what she feels she needs to do. I'm going to give that one 4 stars. The Weight of What Was by Pip Landers Lett. Uh, in 2002, Anna and Grace meet. They form a relationship. Well, Anna's got a brother, and while Anna's out of the country, Grace and the brother sleep together. And Grace is like, I shouldn't have done it, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But she gets pregnant, and so she marries the brother. And then, like 20 years later, they're on a trip basically in the Arctic, and the brother is having an affair with somebody else. Anna still has feelings for Grace. Grace probably has feelings for Anna. Quite honestly, all 3 of these main characters are just annoying. I didn't really feel any of the relationships, not between Anna and the brother. Is it Henry or Hugo? One of those maybe. I can't bother to remember. Not between Anna and her brother, not between Anna and Grace, really. I just didn't buy the relationships. 2 stars. Where the Heart Is by Lily Seabrook. There's like a Jackson family Christmas. They don't want any drama, but of course the parents are getting divorced, but they don't want to tell anybody. Uh, Stella sees her childhood crush there, Abigail, who's recently had a very traumatic breakup with a woman, although nobody knows that she is gay. And of course, they have to be forced to share a room together. Things happen. We will get a similar type of story from Lily Seabrook later, which I'll probably talk about next week. Uh, I haven't finished it yet. This one I think is definitely better. I'm going to give this one 4 star. I do not think I'm going to give that other one 4 stars, but we shall see. Run to You by Georgia Beers is the second book in the Junebug Farm series. Catherine Gardner also works at Junebug Farms. She works in finance. She is she meets Emily Breckenridge, who is the daughter of the shelter's largest donor. So basically, she becomes the go between the shelter and Breckenridge Enterprises. There's also the brother. Honestly, the brother is the reason this one doesn't rank higher. Although Ashley from Rescued Hearts is my favorite character in the trilogy, I generally think that this one's probably better, except for the brother, Clark. Clark. Uh, so Emily really likes Catherine. Catherine really likes Emily, but as apparently is the case with many people at Junebug Farms, can kind of come across as a bit of an ice queen, although she's not really. Uh, I enjoyed the relationship. I think it does kind of falter at the end, and I'm kind of like, um, you'll find in a lot of these romances that sometimes where blame is being placed, it's kind of like, no, not necessarily so. There could be blame placed, if not elsewhere, then equally. And I think this one where maybe it's a little bit more equally, but blame gets placed elsewhere. I do give it a 4 star. Uh, Dare to Stay by Georgia Beers is the last of the trilogy. Jessica Barstow is the owner of Junebug Farms. She doesn't really have time for a relationship, but there's a new reporter in town who's been to host the fundraiser that's been hosted by this one reporter for years and years, but that reporter retired. Sydney is just working here until she can find a job at a bigger city. And of course, they're attracted to each other. This relationship really didn't work for me as well. Kind of the same with the last book. The blame placement, I think, is a little bit skewed. I think this is also the case that it happens to be with Georgia Beer's trilogies. The first book is best, the last book is the worst, but that's also the case here. 3 stars. Uh, 300 Steamer Recipes by Brian White. I bought a bamboo steamer looking for recipes for it. Read this book. A lot of seafood. A lot of seafood. So much seafood. Don't like seafood. Not my favorite recipe book. Also, no pictures, which I mean, not necessarily necessary, but would have been nice. But again, lots of seafood. Don't like seafood. 2 stars. A Lesson in Love by Harper Bliss. Helen Swift is a professor. She's also a cozy mystery writer, although people don't know. She is basically the academic advisor for Victoria Carlisle, and Victoria or Rory really likes Helen. Uh, really likes her. And they start to develop feelings for each other. There's not much substance to it, but it's enjoyable as far as what it is. I'll give it a 4 star. The Duet by Harper Bliss. The Lady Kings and their singer Alana Lynch are going on tour after the death of the guitarist, who is also uh, Lana's partner, uh, died about 10 years ago. So this is their first tour after that. They have an opening act, which is, the other woman who's lead singer, Cleo Palmer. Cleo and Lana are attracted to each other. They do a duet at the end of the night, develop feelings for each other. There's a whole thing about one of the other women has a crush on Lana, and the new guitarist in what the Lady Kings has a crush on Cleo. And apparently it's an unwritten rule that you can't have sex with somebody that your bandmate is crushing on. I mean, even if you have a crush on that person, also apparently, it's that quite honestly, that part is stupid. I enjoyed Lana and Cleo. I just didn't really enjoy much else. 3.5 stars. Notes on Execution by Danya Kukafka. Ansel Packer is on death row. It's the day of his execution that's going to happen, and so we go through the process of his day, and then we go back in the past and we see uh, the point of view from his birth mother and the twin sister of his later wife and a foster child who has met Ansel in the past, who also happens to be a police captain. And we see them at various points over I think like a 30-year period. Uh this could be something. I think it was more an experiment that just didn't work very well. It wasn't horrible, but I didn't really feel anything. Characters didn't really work for me. Honestly, and this is another one where I read over a long period of time. I think this 3, 4, 5 months, I don't know, a long time. By the time I get to one of the characters, who are they? Safi, Lavender, and Hazel, and I start mixing them up. I'm like, okay, which one is which? I can't remember. 2.5 stars. Jolt by Kris Bryant. Bethany is a mystery writer. She's working at basically an LGBTQ camp for kids. She meets Allie Hart, who's a musician there. Bethany is really an introvert. Bethany also seems much younger than she's supposed to be. I didn't really get this relationship. It didn't do anything for me. And I will also say I listened to this on audiobook. I don't think listening to this narrator did me any favors. She made Bethany sound even younger than what I thought she was coming across as. 2.5 stars. Better Than a Dream by Monica McCallan. Gemma is off a relationship with a man. She has come to accept that she is gay. She goes to a club and has an encounter with Harper. Uh, they have sex in a bathroom there, and then Gemma takes off. And then later comes out to find that the company that hired her, is headed by Harper. And, eventually Gemma admits that, that first time with Harper was actually her first time with another woman. And Harper has no time for relationships, got her heart broken in the past. Not trying to be sarcastic, but it does come up a lot in these books. Get the heart broken in the past, so you no longer do relationships, except that special one. It was fine, but nothing special. Almost 300 pages, I think, but it felt so much shorter. I'll give that one a 3 stars. When Worlds Collide by Aaron Zach. Broadway star Heather McCarthy meets Grace Elliott, who is a romance novelist who has had a book basically commissioned to be made into a film. Agents want Heather to be the actress in the film. They meet and develop a relationship, but because of the Me Too movement, the there's a contract that there can't be fraternization, which, I mean, that's total bullshit. I mean, no film is going to be going like, oh, it's horrible publicity for two people involved with this film to form a romantic relationship. That's idiotic. I enjoyed the relationship between these two. I I gotta be honest. I originally had this rated 4 star, and I think the writing is good, but then I think it just got too convoluted, and it's like we have to keep them apart, and it's just like, uh, I originally rated it 4 star because I rated it like right after I read it, but that was days ago, and now I've had time to think. I'm actually gonna say this is a 3 star. Good Girls Steal Goode by J.J. Arias. Good college baseball team. Gabby is an excellent pitcher, but can never get Brooke out on another team. She does not like Brooke at all. And then she comes back to the team at the start of the new semester, and she discovers that Brooke has transferred to her team. Uh, and obviously there's something there, but we don't get it. I got to be honest, of all the good books, and there's 4 or 5 of them, I think I like this one the best because one, it doesn't follow the same formula as the other ones, which is kind of like, okay, we get it. The experienced uh, older woman who hasn't been on a date in a long time gets shown up by the much younger woman who pulls her out of her comfort zone. And it's like, eh. But these are, which is not typical for me to read. These are college students, and there's more depth, I think, to this than in those, which I know that J.J. Arias can do because she wrote Destination U, which is my favorite book of hers. This one was enjoyable, and it gets better the more you read it. 4 stars. Temporary Girl by Robin Alexander. Be honest, this is another one that took me a while to read. So, Jody can't handle commitment. Val is hoping to find the right woman. At her best friend's week long pre wedding party, she meets Jody, and it's like, but Jody's also acting as her friend's girlfriend because he doesn't want to tell people that he's gay. I'll be quite honest, the thing that really messed me up most about this book is that I'm reading this book and I'm like, Oh, okay. People just out of college and like, oh no, these are like late 30s, 40-year-old people. And I'm just like, you people need to get your shit together. Not great. 2.5 stars. Shameless Expectations by Adrian J. Smith. Monty is on a quest for peace. She basically was a massage therapist, but she essentially lives in a van, goes from place to place. But her sister Fallon is kind of called in a favor for her to help her boss Athena. Athena does not like to be touched at all. She can't sleep. She's a workaholic. She's kind of anxiety ridden. She's in a marriage where it's mainly for show because her husband is gay. Um, and Monty is able to help her, and they develop feelings for each other. It was okay, but it was an Adrian J. Smith book, and they're usually about a 3.5 star level, and that's the case here. The Woman in 3B by Eliza Lentzski. Alice Kaminsky is a flight attendant. Uh, she and fellow flight attendants basically have bingo cards for them to accomplish stuff on their flights, and the person who accomplishes all of them wins like a huge amount of money, apparently. One of the things is to do things with a certain C, and she has 3B. Oh, what she's supposed to do is to basically dump a drink on that person. She was going to dump water, but then she sees a woman, a very attractive woman, Anissa, and so she ends up spilling on herself. And then the two of them over time see each other on flights and at the airport. And then in a really kind of cringy scene, Alice goes to Anissa's uh, house. They do the whole relationship thing, and then, well, I don't want to spoil what happens, but the novel really kind of ends in the place where most romance novels are like, oh, okay, this is like, that story curve, like, th- it ends right here. Well, maybe right here. Well, you're expecting all like this here. It's like, oh no, there should be like at least another 100 page in it. It's like, okay, I understand you don't always want to end the novel with the happily ever after, but also I don't think you want to end it like, so are you guys dating? I think they're dating. Are they? Maybe. That's kind of where I ended up. It's like, okay. I mean, I didn't have any problem with their relationship, but I'm just kind of like, oh, that's where we're ending it? 3 stars. The Telltale by Claire Ashton. This is basically, I guess, kind of almost a gothic mystery set in the 1970s. Uh, there's a couple believed to have eloped. They've been missing. There are notes being sent to villagers. There's Bethany, who has just recently returned to the village. Lady Sophia, who owns the manor there. And then there's a lot of misogyny, a lot misogyny. Just not necessarily what I was expecting when I was reading this. I generally enjoy Claire Ashton books, but this to me is kind of like the Red Files with Lee Winter that I talked about last time. That one was sort of a thriller in less of a romance, and this one is more of a mystery and less of a romance. There's romance in it, but it's almost just background stuff. As a book, it was generally enjoyable, but I don't know that enjoyable is the word I would use for it. Because I got to be honest, I was rolling my eyes a lot during this. That's 3.5 stars. So that is what I read this week. I read a couple of books that were not sapphic romances. Uh, so we're doing good there. Please like and subscribe, leave a comment, and I'll talk to you next time.